Dear Father in heaven, we invite your presence as we open your word once again. And we are thankful for the things that have been unfolding in our studies, and we look forward to your leading and guiding. We pray for one another, and we ask, Lord, that the things that we understand, that we study, that you show us, that we can share these things with others. So be with us now, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, so good morning again. And we just had a little bit of a discussion regarding the calendars, which when we get into in the Friday night, when we get to the Babylonian and the Rabbinic and the biblical calendars and all these different calendars, I'm hoping that people understand it. Now, so it was mentioning that Odelia was saying that it was October 13th, the 15th day of the 8th month in 977. Of course, that wouldn't work. So he must be using the rabbinic calendar. But anyway, so that's a point that I really wish was clarified, that people understood how to use the calendar converter, or that they would use our calendar converter rather than the rabbinic calendar. So I'm not sure why he would do that. Now, getting back to our study here, yesterday we looked at Ezekiel chapter 37, and we see that there's a connection between the Valley of Dry Bones, prophecy or vision. It's all part of the same vision. We addressed the dating of that vision. And then we see that the Valley of Dry Bones is connected to the joining of the two sticks. So there was a number of points that came out of that study yesterday. Stephen had read from my paper, The Joining of the Two Sticks, where it talks about the woman of Zarephath, right, who gathers the two sticks, where Elijah, she's going to have the flour and the oil that's going to last during that period of time of the famine. And so I'm trying to figure out exactly where we need to go today. So I thought about it a little bit. Any thoughts about the study from yesterday? Because there was just so many different directions that we could go. The main thing that we understand is that we're setting these dates in order, and that's the line upon line methodology. And it connects the joining of the two sticks. So we had reviewed that. The joining of the two sticks has to do with the two 2520s. We have the prophecy of Hananiah that was connected to Isaiah 7. So there's just all of these different threads, and I'm not sure which ones to pull on to see which ones are going to unravel, or which ones are going to shed light. So is there any suggestions on any questions, I guess, of what we've been studying and where we should go? Because we can just go right back to, and we're going to get to Elijah here pretty soon. Because right now we're just we just dealt with Jeroboam. We dealt with, his son being sick. We dealt with Rehoboam, right? So we dealt with all these things in chapter 14. I don't think we have anything more in chapter 14 to look at that I know of. Now, okay, Angela, you had mentioned before about the names of the different cities that Shishak had. Is that what
He invaded and conquered them.
Okay.
See, Jeroboam thought he was a friend, and so he had no defenses put up against this dude, which is a good lesson. Never trust your friends. I tell them that, I don't really trust anybody. I trust the Lord, but I don't trust people. Mostly, like I'll trust people to a point, but I'm always on guard.
So Rehoboam is, so we got Shishak here in chapter 14 dealing with Rehoboam. Now, one of the things about Shishak that we noticed is 7 times 8 times 9 times 5 is 2520. But there was these cities, and I'm just trying to think where that
I
was.
just went looking for the book. Sorry. It has a map in there, and it has a list of all the cities, and it's got this arrow pointing to all this stuff. So I just assumed, they're in the Bible too, but I never went and checked.
So maybe it's in Chronicles that it lists it.
Yeah, there's a chapter in here called Egypt Invades, and it's got, oh man.
Yeah, so it's Second Chronicles chapter 12, maybe. Yeah, well, First Kings 14 it talks about Jerusalem, but it doesn't mention any other
Yeah,
place.
Second Chronicles 12, 1 to 12, it says.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's read this then. It came to pass when Rehoboam had established the kingdom and strengthened himself, he forsook the law of the Lord and all Israel with him. And it came to pass in the 5th year of King Rehoboam, Shishak king of Egypt came up against Jerusalem because they had transgressed against the Lord. So, because we had read this dealing with the shields and that's why we saw these. So I knew that there was something that we had seen. So he's going to come up with 1,200 chariots and 70,000 horsemen. So that's 60,000 horsemen, 12,000 chariots. And the people were without number that came with him out of Egypt, the Lubims, the Sukims, and the Ethiopians. Ethiopians, yeah. And he took the fenced cities which pertained to Judah and came to Jerusalem. Then came Shemaiah the prophet to Rehoboam, and the princes of Judah that were gathered together to Jerusalem because of Shishak, and said unto them, Thus saith the Lord, ye have forsaken me, and therefore have I also left you in the hand of Shishak. Whereupon the princes of Israel and the king humbled themselves, and they said, The Lord is righteous. And when the Lord saw that they had humbled themselves, the word of the Lord came to Shemaiah, saying, They have humbled themselves, therefore I will not destroy them, but I will grant them some deliverance, that my wrath shall not be poured out upon Jerusalem by the hand of Shishak. Nevertheless, they shall be his servants, that they may know my service and the service of the kingdom of the countries. So Shishak, king of Egypt, came up against Jerusalem and took away the treasures of the house of the Lord and the treasures of the king's house, and he took away all. He carried away also the shields of gold which Solomon had made, instead of which King Rehoboam made shields of brass and committed them to the hands of the chief of the guard that kept the entrance of the king's house. And when the king entered into the house of the Lord, the guard came and fetched them and brought them again into the guard chamber. And when he had humbled himself, the wrath of the Lord turned from him, that he would not destroy him altogether. And also in Judah things went well. So King Rehoboam strengthened himself in Jerusalem and reigned, right? So that's the end of the sentence. For Rehoboam was 41 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city which the Lord had chosen out of all the tribes of Israel, to put his name there. And his mother's name was Naamah, an Ammonitess. And he did evil because he had prepared not his heart to seek the Lord. Now the acts of Rehoboam, first and last, are they not written in the book of Shemaiah the prophet and of Iddo the seer concerning genealogies? And there were wars between Rehoboam and Jeroboam continually. And Rehoboam slept with his fathers and was buried in the city of David, and Abijah his son reigned in his stead. So it doesn't give a list of the cities, but I thought there was a list somewhere. But again, there's nothing about cities. So, but I thought there was something we saw because we were looking at some names of cities, and
Well, I can list them all I see on this map where he was.
Okay, so what do they have?
There must be about at least 24.
Okay,
Well, it's got
well, is there any familiar
Bethlehem and
ones?
Shunem and Megiddo, Aruna, Gath, Shechem, Tirzah. They've got Adam,
Hmm.
Ekron, question mark, Gibeon,
Hmm.
Upper Beth Horon, and then I guess there's a Lower Beth Horon as well. Ashdod. Although Ashdod is on his route, and it's got Gaza,
Okay.
Sharuan, Arad. And it just goes on, you know. I mean, it was quite a campaign, obviously.
Yeah, because there was something that I was looking at before, and now I can't find it, but I'm not sure where that was.
Okay, it says we have Shishak's own account of this military expedition
So
found in
that,
the temple of Ammon at Karnak. So I guess this is
well,
where they're deriving all this info.
okay, so so that's okay. That makes sense. So that's Shawshank the first, which we talked about before, but it's not listed in the Bible, the cities that he conquers. Right. So he captured the fortified cities of Judah as he marched. So it just mentions that in the Bible. But it's this Karnak relief where it lists these cities: Megiddo, Gibeon, Ajalon, Bethshan, Karnak, Arad, Mahanaim, Rehob, Shunem, right?
Yeah.
So the Bible doesn't address those cities. Okay. So it's just more of the archaeological evidence of that. So there was something that we were looking at earlier that I wanted to come back to, some names, but maybe it wasn't cities, maybe it was names of people. But I don't remember the names. Okay. Yeah, so there's history of Rehoboam. Now, then when it talks about now the rest of the acts of Rehoboam and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah? Now, that is not the book of Chronicles. So it's kind of a similar thing to what I did, though my template that I used for mine I actually found online where a guy had done something similar to this. Now you can see this is still kind of an awkward thing to use, but here he goes the absolute chronology of the ancient world from 1533 BC to 140 CE, right? And so he's going to have this color-coded system and where he's got the different kings of the different kingdoms, Egyptian, etc. So if we go to 977, so he starts, with the Exodus, right? That's why he's got 1533. So if we go to 977, that's going to be, I'll just show you how he lines this up. So you're going to see Jeroboam and Rehoboam right there on here. So then he's got the colors for them. So Rehoboam is going to be this light olive green, and then Jeroboam's going to be this yellow. Right, so you can follow that green and yellow. You can see here in the fifth year. Now see how he has them staggered like this? All right, so I got to make that clear. So see, you're going to have Jeroboam, his reign's going to start in the spring, or pardon me, in the fall. Jeroboam's going to start in the fall. So what is he doing here? I'm trying to figure. So this is 977. Oh, I see. Yeah. So Jeroboam's reign is going to start in the fall of 977, and so that's when he starts to count his reign. It doesn't mean that he wasn't reigning before then, because you have the time that you become king, And we're not sure exactly how they work that out. We do know that Rehoboam, because he is continuing on from Solomon, you can see here is Solomon's 40th year. Hopefully people can understand what you're looking at. This is the 40th year here. You got 977 on the left. You can see Solomon's 40th year, and then he's going to die in the 40th year of his reign, but he doesn't die just at we don't know exactly when he died. So here they have the months. He has it as, he's just marking, the 7th month. But possibly Solomon died later, like the 9th or the 10th month. We just don't know. It doesn't tell us. But this here where it says 0, that's Rehoboam's accession year, right? So he is succeeded to the throne, but he's going to start to count his reign in the spring of the following year, or depends. If Solomon died in January, February, right, then he would have just a few months before his first year begins. So they call this accession year dating. That is, you have an accession year. Accession year. Accession. How do you say that? Accession. It's not ascension, right? Accession. Okay, and then we can see Jeroboam is going to be in the fall. So he doesn't have an accession year. He's just going to count this as his first year. So even if he started before the 7th month, he would just have counted that as his first year, is generally how we understand that. There's some debate about exactly how that worked, but he has a new dynasty. So then you're going to see, we follow along, and we're going to get to the 18th year. So you can see the 18th year of Jeroboam. Now it says, how many years did it say Rehoboam reigned?
He reigned 17 years.
Right. Now, so you can see the 17th year of his reign overlaps with the 18th year of Rehoboam, or Jeroboam, right? So Rehoboam's 17th year overlaps with the 18th year. Okay. So you can see when Abijam comes to the throne, he's going to have an accession year, right? That is, this is still part of the 17th year of Rehoboam, right? So they have their 0. They don't need to do that, but like the way that I would look at it is this is still just the 17th year, but there is an accession year. So again, this is accession year dating. And so then his first year is not going to overlap with the first year of Rehoboam. It's going to follow, right? So you're going to have the 17th year, and then what would have been the 18th year of Rehoboam is going to be the first year of Abijam. Does that make sense to people? So whether that has ever been clear to people how this works, but we can see that that's how it's working. So here, one of the things that we can see is that since Rehoboam and Jeroboam began to reign in the first year, what is clear about this? Would this be an argument to show that the kings of Judah are running spring to spring, and the kings of Israel are running fall to fall?
He has on the left side there, he has like minus 977, for instance. Is he using the Gregorian calendar there?
No. No, he just, I don't know why he chose to do that. But no, he has no 0 year. He doesn't have a 0 year. So 977 is 977 BC.
Right, okay.
Yeah, but yeah, an important point. So we know that they're starting at the same time. That's the point, is that Jeroboam and Rehoboam start in the same year. And I guess the argument would have to be, when are they starting? So if you started this in the spring, right, is if we said Jeroboam's reign is going to begin in the spring of 977, and then Rehoboam's going to begin in the fall of 977, right? That's the argument that Thiele makes. So Thiele tries to argue that Jeroboam's first year begins in the spring. Now, what would be the problem with that? So what we know that Solomon's going to die, right? And that Rehoboam is going to become the king. And when he becomes the king, he's going to have an accession year. That is, wherever Solomon dies in his 40th year, that Rehoboam is going to begin reigning in that year, but that is not going to be his first year, right? It's going to either wait till the spring or the fall. Now,
Solomon, for instance, could have died in February 977.
yeah,
And then
well,
Rehoboam would have had like a short accession year, maybe just like a month or two.
yeah, so that's the way that I understand it, is that Rehoboam has a short accession year. But so the argument that Thiele makes is that they counted their reigns fall to fall. The king, that David, Solomon, Saul counted their reigns fall to fall. This is an assumption he makes. Okay, so now we also make an assumption, and the reason why he does that is because it's pretty clear that in the time of Josiah, the kings of Judah are counting their reigns fall to fall. So we know that that's the case then. And so he extrapolates and says, well, they counted their reigns fall to fall, so they must have always counted their reigns fall to fall. But it's pretty clear that Israel is not counting their reigns the same. So you have to have one counting their reigns fall to fall and one counting their reigns spring to spring, because they are not the same. They're not matching. Okay. Now, I know this gets a little bit technical, but we know that Zedekiah, that his reign aligns with the king of Babylon. And we know the king of Babylon is counting his reign spring to spring. And we also know that in the time of Hezekiah and Hoshea, that their reigns are also going to be the same. Okay, so this point about these reigns, I know this is, I almost feel like I shouldn't be doing this study. It's very technical, but I think that we need to look at it, because has this ever been not clear to anybody on how we're counting these reigns? Because we're going to have to do this.
It's never been totally clear to me.
Okay. Yeah, and I think it probably hasn't been for hardly anybody. It's one of these technical things. When I first started looking at chronology, my eyes kind of glazed over when it came to reading about how they were putting together these kings of Judah and Israel. But I had to do it, right? I had to figure it out. and of course, there was lots of disagreements about these things. So what we do know is that they don't have their reigns aligned here. So let's look at these verses. And I know I've touched on this in another place, another study. So in the time in 2 Kings, when we're going to deal with Hoshea and Hezekiah, it's either in 17 or 18. Okay, so it came to pass in the 4th year of King Hezekiah, which was the 7th year of Hoshea. Now this is an unusual expression. That is, it only occurs twice in the Bible, because it doesn't say in the 7th year of Hoshea, which was in the 7th year, but it was the 7th year. Now, of course, the was is added in the English. But if we go back to what we were looking at, so in the 18th year of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, reigned, right? Now, we're going to have this, you just have this number 18, and that's basically just Shemona, which is the number 8, and then you have this word Asar, which is the 10th, right? So that's 18th year. The year's Shana, right? So in the 18th year of King Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, reigned. Now, we know that Rehoboam reigned for 17 years. So that means that however we're counting this reign, they're overlapping, right? So that's pretty clear. And you're going to see this pattern of expression every time. In the 26th year of Asa, king of Judah, began Elah, the son of Baasha, to reign. So you're going to have this 26th year of Asa. So this expression is they just name the year. Okay, so in 2 Kings 18, this expression, so the 4th year, which was the 7th year. So what I'm arguing here is that this 4th year and the 7th year are the same. Now, when I tried working through understanding Hezekiah's reign and Hoshea's reign, we're going to, here, I'll go back a bit. So we'll go in the 12th year of Ahaz, king of Judah, began Hoshea, the son of Elah, to reign. So we're going to have the 12th year of Ahaz, king of Judah, Hoshea, which is the king of Israel. It's going to be in his 12th year. And so we're going to, here it is going to be. So I know this gets a bit confusing. So let's go through this part of it. In the 17th year of Pekah, the son of Remaliah, Ahaz, the son of Jotham, the king of Judah, began to reign. 20 years old was Ahaz when he began to reign. He reigned 16 years in Jerusalem and did not that which was right in the sight of the Lord his God, like David his father. So we're going to have, then it's going to talk about this Rezin, king of Syria, and Pekah, son of Remaliah, king of Israel, came up to Jerusalem to war, and they besieged Ahaz, but could not overcome him. So this is what's talked about in Isaiah chapter 7, though it doesn't go into the details about the war itself. The details are here in chapter 16. And so Ahaz sent messengers to Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria. So here we can see that Ahaz actually went to the king of Assyria to get support. It doesn't explicitly tell us all of these details in Isaiah 7 and 8, but because of this, we know that that's what happened. So we know the background information. And And then so it talks about what happened there. So Ahaz slept with his fathers. That means he died. Now, is it so the 52nd year, so the 52nd year of Azariah, king of Judah. Okay. And then Jotham is going to reign. In the second year of Pekah, the son of Remaliah, king of Israel, began Jotham, the son of Uzziah, the king of Judah, began to reign. Okay. Now, I know we're going back, we're going to these later parts. So we're going to come back to all of this when we get to this part of when we get to 2 Kings. Okay.
Yeah, easier start would be better.
What's that? Yeah. Okay. Well, here I'm going
So
to.
easy.
Okay. So when I tried to sort this out, now Stephen doesn't have all of the fine details in here, but we will look at the fine details later on because there's some things that are quite difficult to sort through here. So we got Jotham. So Jotham's going to reign for 16 years. And then Hoshea is going to begin. So that's what I want to look at is Hoshea. It's going to mention the 20th year of Jotham. Now, Jotham only reigns for 16 years. But it's going to say so that's not when they reign. So in the 52nd year, okay, so here it is. Pekah was going to reign. Yeah, so I had just skipped over it. Okay. So let's go here. So we're going to see that Pekah, the son of Remaliah, he's going to be reign over Samaria, Israel and Samaria, and reign 20 years. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. Right? In the days of Pekah, king of Israel, came Tiglath-Pileser, the king of Assyria. And I looked at this, but I skipped over this. And Hoshea, the son of Elah, made a conspiracy against Pekah, the son of Remaliah, and smote him and slew him and reigned in his stead in the 20th year of Jotham, son of Uzziah, right? Or Azariah, if you want to say his name. So when we go back to this diagram here that Stephen has, now it shows that Hoshea actually begins to reign in the 12th year of Ahaz. So why does it say that he came against Pekah in the 20th year of Jotham? So what's going on here? So the 20th year of Jotham. So we know that these kings here, that their reigns are staggering spring to spring for the kings of Judah and fall to fall for the kings of Israel. Okay. So why would they say in the 20th year of Jotham that Hoshea came against Pekah? So Pekah is going to be overthrown. So remember, we have the civil war that's happening in the time of Jotham. The civil war begins, right? Pekah, the son of Remaliah, he's going to make an alliance with Rezin, the king of Syria, okay, or Aram. And that's going to happen before Jotham dies. So Ahaz inherits that civil war. And then Isaiah 7, that's right at the beginning of his reign in his accession year, before his first year begins. That's why it says the beginning of his reign. It doesn't say in, the second year or the first year of Ahaz. It says in the beginning of his reign, that's when Isaiah comes to him. So his father has died, but his first year is not yet commenced. Okay. Now he's a king of Judah. So the kings of Judah would have their reigns running spring to spring. Okay. Now, what if Ahaz had changed his reign, or someone changes their reign? So Ahaz is a pretty rebellious king. if Jotham's reign was running spring to spring, but Ahaz chose to have his reign run fall to fall, does that make sense to anybody that Ahaz would now adopt a fall to fall calendar for counting his reign? And is that the explanation why they're going to mention the 20th year of Jotham? Because they're counting the spring to spring calendar when Hoshea overthrows Pekah. Now, there's the period of anarchy there. So Hoshea, even though he overthrows Pekah, he doesn't really reign over all Israel. So his reign that's talked about later, where it says the 4th year of Hezekiah is the 6th year of Hoshea. Is that how it goes? Do people understand what I'm trying to say? Somebody not understand it?
Yeah, I'm getting kind of muddled, to say the least.
Yeah, and I can understand why you would be. So it's going to say that it's in the 20th year of Jotham, but Jotham only reigned 16 years. So there's a reason why it says it's the 20th year of Jotham. And my argument is that Jotham was counting his reign spring to spring, just as the kings of Judah always had been, but that Ahaz is going to count his reign fall to fall. And so in order to be clear, the Bible writer says it's in the 20th year of Jotham. That is, he's counting the reign of Jotham, even though Jotham is not alive. He died 4 years earlier. Because there's huge problems that Edwin Thiele ran into when he tried to create these co-regencies. One of the big problems he had is you have people who are, like 3 years old when they become king, right? So he has to, have all of these typos all throughout these reigns and all kinds of things not specifically mentioned, because he's going to get rid of the periods of anarchy, right? So he's just going to say, well, that period of anarchy didn't exist, or the interregnum periods, even though it's pretty clear when you read in the scriptures that they did. And then you're going to have Hoshea when he begins to reign. So keep that in mind. We're going to try to piece this together. Just not completely here, just the idea that when we see that, so we got Pekah in the 17th year of Pekah, the son of Remaliah, Ahaz, right? So Ahaz is going to begin to reign in the 17th year of Pekah. Right, so Pekah had been reigning. Ahaz is going to reign. Then we're going to have, in the 12th year of Ahaz, king of Judah, began Hoshea, the son of Elah. So you're going to have Hoshea begin to reign in the 12th year of Ahaz. And we'll work out all the details when we get to these sections. And then it says here in chapter 17, talking about Hoshea, and he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, but not as the kings of Israel that were before him. Against him came up Shalmaneser, king of Assyria. So that's Shalmaneser the fifth. And Hoshea became his servant and gave him presents. And the king of Assyria found conspiracy in Hoshea, for he sent messengers to So, king of Egypt, and brought no presents to the king of Assyria, as he had done year by year. So he is going to align himself with Egypt. So he's not, and the presents there, those wouldn't be like, birthday gifts. These are his tribute, right? This is a protection racket. So that's the protection money. So he decided that he's going to get Egypt to support him. So he's going to send money to the king of Egypt. And so the king of Assyria is going to come and take him captive and bound him in prison. Right? And then it says the king of Syria came up all throughout the land of Samaria and besieged it 3 years. Now, so that's going to be me see here. And the king of Syria, presence and done. And in the 9th year of Hoshea, king of Assyria, the king of Assyria took Samaria and carried Israel away into Assyria and placed them in Halah and Habor by the river of Gozan in the city of the Medes. So we're going to have so he's going to shut him up, and then he's going to besiege the city for 3 years. So now that 3 years is an inclusive count. So it's really what we would call 2 years. So Shalmaneser is going to come and take Hoshea captive, right? Because he gave this money to the king of Egypt. And then there's going to be a siege, which lasts a bit over 2 years. So that siege, then when it ends, that's when his reign ends. So he is going to be kept alive during that time. So he's taken captive, but Samaria is not destroyed. Now, so you have Shalmaneser V taking him captive, but he's going to be put to death by who? Who's going to finish the job? If you remember. So you got Shalmaneser V, he starts the siege of Samaria, and then it's going to be Sargon II, right? Stephen?
Yes, Sargon II.
Yeah. Now, is it common for a king of Assyria or Babylon to take somebody captive and put him in prison and keep him there? Do they always keep him?
Jehoiachin.
Yeah, so we have Jehoiachin. Now, why would they do that? Why would they keep the king in prison rather than just killing them right out?
Maybe to use them as like an influence to barter in some way.
Okay, yeah, they're a hostage, right? It's a hostage taking in a sense. You have the king, and so that can have some leverage. Now, once he destroys Samaria, there's no point in him keeping Hoshea alive, right? So he just puts him to death. So that's going to be the end of his reign. So then when we get to chapter 18, and I know I'm doing all this just to explain some little point about how these reigns work, but we will go through this in more detail. By the time we get here, we'll be able to sort through it. We'll have better skills. So when it says, and it came to pass in the 4th year of Hezekiah, which was the 7th year of Hoshea. So we now have Hoshea, he's the one that's going to bring the end of Pekah's reign in the time of Ahaz. But we can see that his reign is not being counted from that period of time. And so we have this expression, the 4th year of King Hezekiah, which was the 7th year of Hoshea. So it's talking about when the temple's burned. Now, in the 5th month, in the 10th day of the month, which was the 19th year of Nebuchadnezzar. No, that's not it. It's going to compare the 2 years between Zedekiah and Nebuchadnezzar. But this isn't it. But I think it's in 52. It was either in 1 Kings 25, 2 Kings 25, or Jeremiah 52. So it's going to use the same expression. The point is that Zedekiah's reign is going to align with Nebuchadnezzar's reign. Oh, that's why it uses the word Nebuchadnezzar. Yeah, it's Jeremiah 32. There it is. The word of the Lord came to Jeremiah from the Lord in the 10th year of Zedekiah, king of Judah, which was the 18th year of Nebuchadnezzar. So here we have the same expression. So that expression, and we'll go into that in more detail later on when we get to that part. But what we're arguing here is that the reigns of these kings overlap spring to spring, fall to fall, but they're going to change, right? And if that change occurs, so going back to this here, so I tried everything, right? I said, well, what if, Judah was always going fall to fall and Israel was going spring to spring? Would that work? And it didn't, right? The only thing that worked was if Israel was going fall to fall and Judah spring to spring. Except that Judah later is going to change fall to fall. And so Edwin Thiele, when he makes this argument that because Josiah clearly has a fall to fall reign, that means the kings of Judah always must have had a fall to fall reign, that's specious reasoning, right? Especially since we can see that in the time of Ahaz, when Pekah is overthrown by Hoshea, they're going to say that it's in the 20th year of Jotham, a king who is dead. And the only explanation that makes sense to me is that they're using Jotham's reign because Jotham, if they said it was in the reign of Ahaz, it wouldn't be as clear, right? Because it would be a different year. So to make it clear, they use Jotham's reign, even though he's dead. The 20th year of Jotham doesn't make sense. And I've seen no one have a good explanation for that, other than the one that I just gave. To me, that's the only reasonable explanation. So when we start working through these kings, working through this chronology, we will see how that comes into play. With the kings of Judah, you're always going to have an accession year. That is, a king is going to die, and his year of reign is not going to, the next king is not going to start his first year when his dad dies. But in Israel, when they change a dynasty, they do sometimes have no accession year. Right? That is because if you killed somebody off, you're just going to say, this is my first year. You're not going to say, I'm continuing the reign of the king that I killed. I'm just going to count that as my, accession year. Do you understand what I'm saying? You can see why the kings of Judah have an accession year and why the kings of Israel sometimes do if they're continuing a dynasty, and sometimes don't when they're ending a dynasty. Right? That makes sense? So hopefully that's clear on how that works, because it will have to become clear at some point, because you will see how that works. Now, when we go through here, so that's the beginning of their reigns, and then we come to the 18th year of, here it is. So Abijam, his dad reigns for 17 years. Abijam becomes king, and it's in the 18th year of Jeroboam. So this is Rehoboam here. There's Jeroboam. So that's much clearer now, right? That their reigns are staggered, and they're staggered in this way.
And now it seems to be a little clearer.
Yeah, I know. But you kind of have to work through it in order to understand it, right? Because otherwise these words just go over our heads. We don't really understand or grasp what's happening. So I have had friends, who tried to work through the chronology, and they ran into this problem, which I ran into because I didn't understand this at first. Now, when we continue going through these kings here, so it says, in the 18th year of King Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, reigned Abijam over Judah. 3 years reigned he in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Maacah, the daughter of Absalom. Okay, so you can see that he's going to reign, according here, he's got this accession year after Rehoboam dies. And then he's going to have his first year, and that's going to start in the spring, right? And then his second year starts in the spring. And then his third year. And during his third year, we're going to have Asa. So in 1 Kings 15, verse 9 to 10, it's going to say, in the 20th year of Jeroboam, king of Israel, reigned Asa over Judah. Now, so we have the 20th year of Jeroboam. So you can see here, that's Jeroboam's 20th year, that Asa begins to reign. So he's going to begin to reign, that is, Abijam, in the 18th year of King Jeroboam. And then he's going to reign for 3 years. And yet it says it's going to be in the 20th year of Jeroboam that the king of Israel reigned, or the Jeroboam, the king of Israel, reigned Asa over Judah. So if we were just to do the math there, I wish this wasn't on a different page because it would be easier to kind of look at it. But you can see that this is the 18th year of Jeroboam. Abijah begins to reign. He reigns 3 years, but he's really reigning like not 3 full years, right? So his reign is going to be start at the beginning of the reign, or the 18th year, somewhere. We don't know exactly where. Like, he's putting it in here sort of arbitrarily. But it's going to be earlier in the 18th year of Jeroboam, and then later in the 20th year of Jeroboam that Asa then begins to reign. You see that there? And so when they have a king begin to reign, notice they don't mark the first year of their reign. They mark when they begin their accession year, right? Because technically, Asa's first year is going to begin in the 21st year of Jeroboam, right? So you can see, if you're just looking at this superficially, you say, well, that doesn't make any sense. You know, if he began, if their reigns were aligned, right? That is, if the 20th year of Jeroboam was same as the second year of Asa, that is, if they both reigned spring to spring or fall to fall, you wouldn't have this happen, right? You couldn't have, right? You couldn't have this problem. So it's another strong evidence that these reigns are overlapped in this way. Now, where we start them at the beginning, whether we start Jeroboam, and that's what I want to go back to. So when we get back to the beginning of these reigns of Jeroboam and Rehoboam, if Jeroboam had begun in the spring for the first year of his reign, and Rehoboam had begun in the fall, so that means you would have to have Solomon having a fall to fall reign. It technically could be possible. But the thing about Jeroboam, does he become king right after Solomon dies? And we say no, right? So Solomon's going to die. And do we know the time of year with the situation with Jeroboam and Rehoboam? Did we have any clues as to when this occurs?
I thought I heard one time it was fall.
Okay.
Thought I did, I'm not sure.
Because this is a point that we really do want to examine. Now, so we know that it's going to be in the fall that he's going to be offering in Bethel, right? Okay, so in chapter 13, so let's go back and look at some of this. So in chapter 13, Jeroboam's going to be offering in Bethel. So we know that he's king of northern Israel by the fall, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's going to take him some time to become the king, and he's going to set up this. So it's going to take him a bit of time to set up these idols, right? Right, these golden calves. It's going to take him time to do that. So he has to become king a little bit before that. But he's going to put it in the 8th month. So now what is he doing? So we know that that the kings David, Saul, and Solomon, that they would have had their reigns either spring to spring or fall to fall. Now the assumption that Thiele makes is that it's fall to fall. Now we have strong evidences, of course. We know that the year begins in the spring. We know later on there is a fall to fall count. But can we prove that it's spring to spring for the kings of Judah? So Solomon's going to die in his 40th year. Rehoboam is going to be made king. And so if we go back here, chapter 11. So Solomon turns from the Lord. So he reigned 40 years. Solomon slept with his fathers, right?
Why the delay?
What's that?
So why the delay? How come they delayed?
What do you mean delayed?
Well, Jeroboam didn't become king right away, you said.
Well, because Jeroboam is not the son of Solomon, right? So Solomon died. Now Jeroboam has to come back. Now, where is Jeroboam? He's in Egypt, right? Right. So he had fled to Shishak of Egypt and was in Egypt until the death of Solomon. So you're going to have Solomon die, and then it's going to take time for Jeroboam to come back after the death of Solomon. Now, remember, in Rehoboam, he's king of Judah, right? Well, he's king of all Israel, but he's going to end up just as the king of Judah because of his decision of listening to the counsel of the young men. Okay, so that occurs. Then it says, the kingdom divided. So when all Israel saw that the king hearkened not unto them, the people answered the king, saying, what portion have we in David? Neither have we inheritance in the sons of Jesse. To our tents, O Israel. Now see to thine own house, David. So Israel departed into their tents. But as for the children of Israel, which dwelt in the cities of Judah, Rehoboam reigned over them. And the king Rehoboam sent Adoram, who was over the tribute, and all Israel stoned him with stones, that he died. Therefore King Rehoboam made speed to get him up to his chariot to flee to Jerusalem. Okay, and then so Israel rebelled against the house of David unto this day. Came to pass when Israel heard that Jeroboam was come again, that they sent and called him unto the congregation and made him king over all Israel. And there was none that followed the house of David. Right. So you're going to have Rehoboam being made king, but so the question is, how long does this take? So if you read the story, you'd think, okay, Rehoboam becomes king. The next day, this happens, and then Jeroboam's made king of Israel. But we can see that there is a delay for Jeroboam. One is he has to come back from Egypt right? After he hears that Solomon dies. So that's going to, so first the news has to get to him that Solomon is dead. And then he's going to have to make the decision to go back to the land of Israel. So exactly how that happens, we don't know, but it does take time. So we don't know exactly when these things occurred, like where in the year. All we know is that we have these golden calves in the fall. Okay? So that's what's going to follow next. So he's going to be the king by the fall. Now, so let's go back to, okay, so in Chronicles, it's going to give us more details about this. So maybe we can get some hints. Okay, so you can see you're going to have Solomon. Okay, so let me see, the Queen of Sheba, Solomon's wealth, which is just Solomon's death. Okay. So Rehoboam, his son, reigned. So now we're going to have quite a few more chapters here. Rehoboam went to Shechem, for to Shechem were all Israel come to make him king. So Solomon dies. Rehoboam is going to go to Shechem. Why does he go to Shechem? Because that's where they get made king, right? That's like the coronation city, I guess. Even the first fake king of Israel was crowned in Shechem. So it came to pass when Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who was in Egypt, whither he had fled from the presence of Solomon the king, heard it, that Jeroboam returned out of Egypt. So now we have some more details. It's going to be when he hears that Rehoboam has been made king, now he's going to come from Egypt. And they sent and called him. So Jeroboam and all of Israel came to spake to Rehoboam, saying, thy father's made our yoke grievous, right? So now we know that here Jeroboam is there at the time that Rehoboam is having this conversation regarding the yoke, right? So that we don't get that detail in Kings. So it's going to give us more of this, that the relationship with Jeroboam and Rehoboam. So Jeroboam and all the people came to Rehoboam on the third day, as the king bade, saying, come again to me the third day. And the king answered them roughly, right? So we're going to have to go through some of this in more detail. So then he's going to secure the kingdom. So then it's going to be, they're going to, so he built Bethlehem. He's going to fortify the strongholds. Priests and the Levites came to Jerusalem. So we can see that this is not just a kind of a couple of days, right? That all of these things happen. And then we're going to get to chapter 12, where Shishak comes and against in the 5th year of Rehoboam. So can you see how that there's going to be time involved? So when exactly Rehoboam or Jeroboam becomes king of Israel, when he's actually made king and gets set up, we know it's by the fall. Okay? So the scenario that we have is it's going to be, maybe February that Solomon dies. Rehoboam's going to have an accession year. He's going to be made king in the spring. Now, and it's hard to know specifically if he waits till the spring to actually be crowned king. So there seems to be a practice in that time where they would wait, that like they actually officially become king. Like that's why they call it their first year. They have an accession year. They have a period of time. They are king, but they're going to go through an official ceremony at the beginning of the year, which for Judah would be in the spring. For Israel, that would be in the fall. So it's something we have to keep in mind. Now, the problem of the spring and the fall, and then when they become the same in the time of Hoshea and Hezekiah, these details, we will start to recognize why they're significant. Now, when I originally did this work, what I had done is I'd set aside all of these assumptions. I just tried to see how I could make these work. Like, could I make them possibly work if it was different? That is, if Israel was spring to spring and Judah was fall to fall. If I did that, would I be able to get the reigns to work? And I couldn't, right? It just didn't work out that way. So, but that's the way that Edwin Thiele did it. But then he ignores a lot of the scriptures, right? Things that didn't fit in, they just become typos. So I wasn't really willing to do that. But I don't know, is this going to be a bit too dry? I mean, we will go through the stories as well, but we're going to have to address this chronology because this is putting the bones in place, right? That we need to do this, right? That's what we studied yesterday. We looked at Ezekiel chapter 37, that Ezekiel, now, does Ezekiel typify this movement, I guess, is another question. Because Ezekiel typified Samuel Snow, right? Because he's going to start prophesying on he's going to have his first vision on the 5th day of the 4th month. That's going to be midnight. That's going to typify Samuel Snow presenting in Boston at midnight. And in this movement, there was this, idea, well, who's Samuel Snow? If Jeff was Miller, who's going to be Samuel Snow? Jeff even at one point named Tess as Samuel Snow, right? That was a mistake, obviously. But it was a mistake which could have easily been avoided because Jeff had agreed before that the movement was Samuel Snow, that it wasn't an individual. And so can we argue still that we are Samuel Snow, that the movement is Samuel Snow? That it's Ezekiel, right? So Ezekiel is typifying us, those that put these bones into place. Okay? So he typifies Samuel Snow, but he also typifies us. So we have to prophesy upon these bones, right? Because God is going to command Ezekiel to prophesy upon the bones. And when he does, right, he says, you have all these bones. So I prophesied as I was commanded, and as I prophesied, there was a noise, and behold, a shaking, and the bones came together, bone to his bone. So is this what we are to do now? Is this what we have been doing? Do we have to go through, like, we could say, well, you already did all the chronology for us. We'll just accept your chronology. You and Stephen did a good job. Or do we need to actually go through this again as a group rather than me going through it and Stephen going through it? Yes, Angela. I don't hear you, Angela.
Sorry. Was Christ on the cross in Psalm 22:14 predicting that
you can tell all my bones
would be set aside when he says all my bones are out of joint?
Okay. Yeah, so so that's going to be which verse here?
Yeah, Psalm 22:14, where Christ is saying, when David is personifying.
Yeah, I'm poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. Yeah, that's interesting. But also it says, they may tell all my bones.
Exactly. Yeah, I noticed that. I thought this is extremely interesting.
Yeah. And the word tell, safar,
Count. Yeah.
yeah, it can be, yeah, in this word itself, to enumerate, it can to be inscribed or to enumerate, right? So the idea of telling is related to a tally, right? In English, you tally something, you're telling it. It's related. So yeah, so they can count or enumerate or tally all of my bones. So yeah, so I think there definitely is, and it's through the cross of Christ when Christ dies on the cross. So if we're going to tell his bones, that means we have to understand the chronology of the week of Christ as well, right? Yeah, so that's an interesting point. So I think this is the work that we are to do, and even though it can be a bit painful, but I also think it'll be good for me to go through all of this stuff again, because it's been a lot of years since I worked through this painful process. And we're gonna not make it as painful as it was for me, because we've we've broken up the ground already, and we've got rid of a lot of the trash, to mix metaphors. But you can see the importance of this. So we will still go through the stories, but we're going to have to address each of these chronologies and clearly mark them out, instead of just glossing over it and just kind of raising up our hands and saying, well, I don't know, this must be correct. We have to actually work through it. Okay. So we went a bit over. So let's have a word of prayer. Dear Father in heaven, thank you again for the time that we have had, even though it's been a bit scattered, like the bones in the valley. We just pray, Lord, that you can help us to gather them, and that we can prophesy to the bones, that the sinews and the flesh and the skin will come upon them, that we can clearly see the message that you have for us. So we are thankful, Lord, that you've entrusted us with this work, and we just pray that we can do this faithfully together. We pray this in Jesus' name.